What's good, guys? This is Unjolly Ranchers diving into the shadows of life's untamed tales. Today, we're going to be talking about my first time trying mushrooms. Now, this story takes place back in 2019 when your boy was still working at a restaurant. For privacy reasons, we're just going to call it Bob's Burgers. Anyway, that morning, before I went to work, I hit up a new plug I met on Snap and told him I'd like to buy a gram of shroomies off him. He told me he could meet me around 11 o'clock at my job, so I told him that was chillin', and just to let me know when he was 5 minutes out and to park in front of the drive-thru window so I'd see him pull up. That morning, I carpooled to work with my manager, we'll just call her Sarah, who's definitely one of the best bosses I've ever had. The day started out pretty normal. We got to work, she opened up the kitchen and got things going in the back while I set up the lobby and counter area. We finished about 10 minutes early, so we headed out back to the smoke area, pulled out the pipe, and loaded up a bowl of kush. Yeah, you heard that right. My boss and I smoked a little weed together before work, basically every day. She was a really cool boss. As long as you did the work you needed to do and could function properly doing your job high, it wasn't a big deal back then. Just about everybody smoked at work in those days. Anyways, we got back inside after taking some eye drops and masking the smell. I turned on the open signs and took my place up front. So far, it was a normal day at work. Chill vibes, a little cleaning, and taking a few orders until things would pick up around noon. The entire morning, I was super excited, knowing tonight would be the night I'd get to try mushrooms. I couldn't stop thinking about it. So about an hour later, a few minutes after 11, the third person showed up to Bob's Burgers. We'll just call him Harley. Now, Harley is a great guy and a friend of mine to this very day. Every time I got to work with him was always a great shift. Right around this time, my plug had just rolled up, so I told Harley, "Hey bro, guess what I'm getting?" "What's that, man?" So I told him I was buying some mushrooms. He asked me if I'd ever tried them before, and I told him I hadn't. It'd be my first time. Now, he was really excited. Seeing his facial expression brighten up, he told me I was going to love him and he wanted to know how the trip went. After telling him what was up, I said I needed to run outside and meet my plug. He had no problem covering me for a few minutes, so I ran outside through the drive-thru door and met my plug at his car. Stepped inside his whip and he dabbed me up. "Hey man, how are you?" Pretty good, man. Excited for my first trip," I told him. "Wait, this is your first trip?" he asked me. I told him it was, and I plan on sharing the gram with my buddy D that night. My plug told me 1 gram definitely wasn't enough to share, and asked if I'd like to buy more, and also offered to trip sit us. I told him I was alright and just wanted to try a small amount before spending more cash. He was understanding and passed me the bag with that one single mushroom inside. I thanked him, pocketed the bag, and went back into work. When I walked in, Harley asked me, "So you got him?" Since there weren't any customers inside, I told him to follow me. We stepped into the stockroom, out of the camera's view, and I whipped it out, proudly showing off my tiny mushroom. Harley stepped closer, looking at the mushroom I got, then asked, "Bro, is that it?" "Yeah man, I just wanted to try one before I got a lot." He then told me one single mushroom wasn't gonna do anything to me. Confused and a little sad, I asked him if he was sure. Sadly, his response was something like, "Yeah man, you've got to take more than that if you're gonna trip. You probably won't even feel anything from that." Disappointed yet still excited, I told him I was just going to take it on my lunch break as we walked back into the kitchen. At this point, my manager ended up overhearing us and asked, "So, what are you going to take on your lunch break?" raising an eyebrow. So I told her I bought a gram of mushrooms, and she also said, "I doubt you're really going to feel anything off that." At this point, I was certain the statements they gave me were accurate, so I asked them, "Should I just eat it on my break then?" Harley laughing said, "Yeah man, it's not gonna get you high, you might as well." Looking at my boss for reassurance, she shrugged and didn't think much of it, so I asked her, "What if I do get high though?" She told me not to worry about it. Worst case scenario, it was super slow that day and they could handle it without me. Now I was stoked, thinking, wow, if I do get high, my first mushroom trip's gonna be at work. What a story this will make. Not even thinking about how I'd be telling this story for you guys right now on YouTube. Now, it was around 1 o'clock, and it had been pretty slow all day. At this point, my manager was working up front doing lobby and the window at the same time like a badass. Harley and I cleaned up the kitchen, restocked and finished our 1 o'clocks so we could take our breaks. Since I was there before him, I got to take mine first. Right before I walked out that door, I asked him one last time, "You're sure I'm not going to get high, right?" He told me I probably wouldn't, but there's always a small chance. I laughed and said, "Fuck it," and walked out. Now, keep in mind, I basically had permission from all of my coworkers to do this on the job. So I headed to the gated break area, loaded a bowl, started eating my food, and opened that little baggie I bought, examining every little detail of this golden cap Kabenzi. not knowing back then that this is one of the strongest strains out there. I just thought mushrooms were mushrooms back then. I ate the cap, taking in the bitter flavor of this beautiful shroom, then followed up with the stem. Finished my food, smoked the rest of my bowl, and finished watching an episode of Adventure Time that I'd used to track my 10-minute breaks. I opened the gate, walked through the kitchen door to Harley asking me, "So, did you take it?" I smiled and said, "What do you think?" We laughed about it for a minute, then he had out for his break. My manager then had me switch places with her and take the headset. Before I grabbed it from her, I said, "So, I ate that mushroom. Do you think this is a good idea?" She said it'd be fine and that it'd been super slow all day. A little worried, I grabbed the headset and went up front. Now, keep in mind, I preferred to work in the kitchen because back in those days, being an insecure 16-year-old, my anxiety was always through the roof. But I figured everything would be fine, trusting the wise words of my buddy Harley about how I wouldn't get high. Well, about 5 minutes of being up front, things got a little weird. Keep in mind, there were also a few customers already eating in the lobby. Anyways, I was walking around the counter area, making sure everything was stocked up, and that's when I noticed a funny feeling in my chest. At first, I thought it might have been anxiety, but I was so wrong. This warm, fuzzy feeling was something I had never felt before, but I just shrugged it off. As time progressed, things got weirder. That fuzzy feeling started to spread all throughout my body, from my legs to my fingertips. I started swaying my arms up and down, trying to understand what this new feeling was. It was almost like every cell in my body was hypersensitive. My arms felt light and floaty, but also weighed down. At that point, I knew I was high, so I went into the kitchen and found Harley by the grill. I peeked over the counter and said, "Yo, dog, I'm definitely high." His eyes widened as a smile grew across his face, asking me, "Really? Are you sure?" I made the most awkward face and was like, mm-hmm. At this point, he looked into my eyes and saw my pupils were huge. I then remember him asking, "Are you sure you only took 1 gram?" I assured him it was only 1 gram, and he told me I'd be fine, and that's probably as high as I'd get. At that moment, I heard a beep in my headset. My soul sank, realizing I had to take someone's order on shrooms. Bro hyped me up and calmed my nerves down, saying everything would be fine and he'd take over if I had any trouble. It calmed me down a bit, and I went up to the window and answered the mic. "Hello, welcome to Bob's Burgers. What can I get started for you?" The woman then placed her order, and I did just fine taking it, but right as I was about to tell her to go to the window, my mind and body were flooded with a wave of psilocybin. The room started to wave around, and I couldn't think properly. I ended up looking around the room for I don't even know how long until I heard a voice in my ear. For a second, I thought it was God or some mushroom wizard talking to me. Nope, it was an angry woman who had been waiting on my response for quite some time. I don't even know how long. So I told her, "I'm sorry, my boss was asking me a question. Pull on up, buddy." My face was fuzzy, my body felt amazing, but this is where my anxiety really started to kick in a bit. Surprisingly, nowhere close to where it should have been if I were sober. The lady pulled up and somehow I managed to cash her out properly, but just as she was about to drive away, I heard another beep. Fuck, I thought, I'm too high for this. So I took the man's order, he pulled up to the window, and as I was about to cash him out, I accidentally pressed cash instead of card. So now I'm here trying to do math in my head with the window open. Maybe 5 minutes passed and I had no idea what I was doing. I was tripping so hard his face began to morph. He asked me, "What's taking so long?" I said nothing and slowly closed the window, making awkward eye contact with this dude, hopping on my headset like, "Hey, Sarah, I forgot how to do math." "What?" she asked me through the headset. "Yeah, I took the mushroom and I forgot how to math." She told me it was fine and thought this might happen, then told me just to hang out in her car until the trip wore off. So before walking out, I slowly looked at the angry guy sitting in his car waiting for this 16-year-old dumbass who was tripping balls to help him. Then walked right past him out the side door and sat in Sarah's car. Now, at this point, I didn't think I'd get any higher, but boy was I wrong. There was this tree I stared at for an hour or so while I had Tame Impala playing on my phone, and it was vibing as hard as I was. A couple hours later, I ended up coming down from the trip and saw a text on my phone from my plug saying,
Let me know how you like them tonight, and I'll bring you more tomorrow if you like.
So I called him and told him the whole story. He laughed his ass off and said,
Shit, man, you're supposed to do it at home or somewhere you feel comfortable. You must have had the worst trip.
I told him, nah, it was great. Think you could actually bring me another gram and a tab of acid? Now at this point, he's laughing hysterically, like, really bro? You wanna dive deeper? What a fucking trooper. Then told me he'd be there in about 20 minutes. He pulled in, dabbed me up, and gave me my stuff. Later that day, once my manager was off work, I told her how it went. I had no idea at the time how this could slide at work, but I guess it was all about having the right kind of people around me. It definitely could have gone a lot worse. Might have gotten fired if it were another work environment. Anyways, that guys was my experience with taking mushrooms for the first time. While at work, may I add. It's definitely a crazy one, and I definitely don't recommend doing anything like this in the video. Please learn from my dumbass. If it weren't for awesome coworkers, I definitely would have been fired. I hope you all enjoyed the story. I had a lot of fun making this one. Anyways, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more crazy life stories. Stay tuned for more on Jolly Tales. Keep it trippy. Until next time, peace.